There's a brand new Sailor Moon manga release from Kodansha, but is this an edition that hardcore fans should really add to their collection, or can they safely skip it? Hey everyone, this is Kempty Rodriguez, film critic of iCritic.net here, and we are talking about the Sailor Moon manga again. So, the last time that I talked about the Sailor Moon manga, I was talking about this beauty, this beautiful, complete, almost perfect release of the Sailor Moon manga from Kodansha. I think I talked about this, 5 or 6 years ago? Holy cow, has it really been that long? Like, am I that old? Probably. Anyway, so yeah, you might recall that video. I was talking about the release history of the manga and what this edition meant to a longtime Sailor Moon fan in America. So rather than go over all of that again, if you have not watched that video, I know it's a little older, I know the audio isn't quite as good, but I'm going to put a link up above, and I encourage you to watch that for the full review of this. If you have already watched that review or just simply don't care, then we can now talk about this release. This right here. Now, this release of Pretty Guardian Sailor Moon from Kodansha is simply known as the Naoko Takeuchi Collection release. And we will talk a little bit more about that title because I think it's a very interesting title. And as you can see, it is a much more compact edition of the Sailor Moon Eternal manga. And before we get any closer, if you just want to have the question answered, is all this is a stripped down version of this? The short answer is yes, it absolutely is a stripped down version of this. However, if you want a more detailed analysis of what you will be getting, it is a little bit more complex than that. So let's continue. Now, the first thing you are definitely going to notice about this book, it's that it is much smaller. Compared to the 32-page release and the Eternal edition, it is a much smaller experience. Now, for some people, this may not bother them. It's more compact, it's easier to carry around, and it doesn't take up quite as much space on your shelf, kind of. We'll get to that in a second. But, you know, for some people, this is just a compact release, and that may or may not be a breaking point for you already. If you're like me, who goes on that I need to see it on the big screen and watching it at home is fine, but you're missing out on a lot of the detail, your attitude is going to kind of be like that. It's the same artwork and everything, but when it's more compact, you don't notice details as often. It's not as nice to look at, but it is easier to carry around if, say, you're a teenager or a kid and you're going on like a trip. It's much easier to put these in the backpack than these. Interestingly, even though it is a much smaller book, it seems to be a much thicker book, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. At first I thought it was simply because maybe the Naoko Takeuchi Collection was going to include more material and thus there would be less books to sell, but both of the books end at Sailor Venus being introduced, and yet the Naoko Takeuchi book is thicker than the Eternal edition. I also thought that maybe these blank pages at the end of the Takeuchi Collection book may have been the reason why it was a little bit thicker, even though it's just a few, but that's not really the case because the Eternal edition has the exact same amount of blank pages. I don't know why there are blank pages. That seems like a complete waste of paper, but they have them. And so I don't really know why it's thicker. The only thing I can think of is that it must have something to do with the paper quality. Because as you may have remembered from my other review, the Eternal edition has this very nice pristine paper. It's practically glossy. But the Naoko Takeuchi Collection, which it's hard to see on the video, I know, has much rougher paper, and maybe that paper is just a little bit thicker or something like that, and it's not thick enough that the human eye can notice, but it's thick enough to make a difference, if that makes any sense. So in terms of other manga you might have, as you can see, this new release of Sailor Moon is very much in line with other manga books. It is a little thicker, but it's the same size, it's the same length. If you put them on a shelf, people really aren't going to notice it too much. It's not even so much thicker that it would stand out. Like the Shaman King books, those re-release books stand out on a shelf because of how thick they are. But even though this new release of Sailor Moon is a little bit thicker, it's not, how should I put it? It's not noticeably thicker unless you put it next to one other manga book. In terms of extras, this book release doesn't have anything different that the Eternal Edition doesn't have. It has the exact same amount of chapters, apparently the exact same amount of pages, even though there is a thickness discrepancy, and the notes are there. There's nothing added to this edition that you don't already get in the Eternal Edition, except for maybe a few downgrades. A really nice feature that I liked on the Eternal Edition, whether you can see it here or not, is that it kind of sparkles. Like there's sparklies here. It's really nice. We'll have like another video so that you can see what that looks like, hopefully. But that sparkliness, that little extra glow and polish that's on the Eternal Edition cover has been stripped from this new release. There is a border that's added around the artwork, which is actually kind of a nice touch, and I do like how the Naoko Takeuchi Collection banner is right there. I'm assuming these banners are going to be different colored for all the releases to, you know, match up with whatever soldier is on the cover, but you know, they're nice touches. But otherwise, you know, this is the much prettier cover, as you can probably guess, because it, you know, not only is it bigger, but it's got the, you know, shiny, glittery thing going for it that looks oh so pretty. One thing that has certainly been taken away, though, is color pictures. Now, if you looked in the Eternal Edition, you will see that with very few exceptions, all of the pages that were made in color in Japan are preserved in color in this Eternal Edition. It was actually one of the big draws on buying this new release because some of these color pictures had not been seen in America ever, so it was really nice to have. Unfortunately, this Naoko Takeuchi edition only has one color page, and I don't even know if that color page is going to be there forever. I think it might be a first edition run thing. I don't know for sure, don't quote me on that, but as you can see, all of the pictures that would have been in color are no longer in color, and that is definitely something to consider if you are a hardcore Moonie and you want these comics looking the best that they absolutely can. Another downgrade to this book, although some might actually consider this an upgrade, if you will, is the price. The Naoko Takeuchi books cost $12.99 a book. Now, this is about $2.99 extra per book that most manga books would cost. The average manga book is $10. And so this is a few dollars more than that, although it is a little thicker, so you could probably justify that. But one thing it is that it is significantly cheaper than the Eternal Edition, which is about $27.99. And that is a savings of over $10. And I do know that, look, I'm older now. I've got jobs, I've got side hustles, I've got YouTube money sometimes coming in. So I would definitely buy these books, and I'm not really going to feel it very much. But, you know, let's say you got a family to feed, or you're a lot younger, gas is starting to really get to you. You could get 2 of these for the price of 1 of these, and so I think that's good to have options because, you know, if I was a kid right now, I know the Eternal Editions would be not necessarily out of my price range, but it would be much harder to save and buy them, and so a smaller, more compact, more economic release of these books would have certainly done me very well if I was younger. I mean, like, I'm older now, so these prices don't affect me that much, but if you are on a budget for whatever reason, then the Naoko Takeuchi Collection edition is a pretty compelling offer, considering you can get 2 of these for the price of 1 of these and still have a couple dollars left over. Now, really, that's all there is to say about the book, but I did want to come back to the fact that this is called the Naoko Takeuchi Collection. Now, Naoko Takeuchi is a famous mangaka in Japan, but over in America, she's basically known for one thing. She is known as the creator of Sailor Moon. But if you ask anyone else what some of her other series are, they probably couldn't tell you. And I'm hoping that this and, well, this, wait, am I pointing like, no, this banner right here. I hope these are foreshadowing of things to come rather than just a rebrand for this particular book. I am hoping that Kodansha actually brings some of Takeuchi's other manga series over to the US under this banner. And here's a spoiler alert. I have read some of these other works, and most of them are not great. But none of them are terrible either. They're very unique and they're interesting, and it's kind of nice to see some of her other artwork and her other projects. And I'm hoping that her Sailor Moon re-release has been successful enough, and by doing this, Kodansha is bringing her name kind of forefront and center to the work, that maybe some of her lesser known works can finally start appearing in America. And I'm not expecting eternal editions for those works, but I would certainly get Naoko Takeuchi editions of those releases if they made them available. At the end of the day, Sailor Moon has come a long way in America. I think back to those mix sign books that were flimsy and fell apart and were super small, and I kind of marvel at the good options that we have with these releases. Now, as far as who I would recommend get the Naoko Takeuchi books, I would say it's primarily for not the mega Sailor Moon fans, but the moderate Sailor Moon fans who maybe want it in their collection, but kind of balked at paying about $28, really $30 after tax, for a single book, or maybe for younger kids who can't afford it. Basically, if you want Sailor Moon on a little bit of a cheaper level, this is a good release. It's not a bad book. If you already have the Eternal Edition books, you really don't need this one. That said, if you are a hardcore Moonie and you have not yet gotten the Eternal Edition books of the Sailor Moon series, I would probably consider looking into doing that now. Now, this next part that I'm going to tell you, I have no basis in reality for this. I have no concrete proof. It's just something I've observed, and it's something you might want to potentially be aware of. The Eternal Editions might be going out of print soon as a result of this new edition, and there's no concrete proof to that. Again, I don't know anything. This is pure speculation. But when the Eternal Editions of the Sailor Moon books were released, they're pocket editions, which is basically the size of the Naoko Takeuchi collection, except they were the white covers. Those started to go out of print in favor of the Eternal editions coming out. Now that the Naoko Takeuchi collections are coming out, maybe the Eternal edition books will be going out of print, which are probably a lot more expensive to produce. Maybe they've hit the ceiling and now they're releasing this new version for the people who didn't want to spend that kind of money. And if that is the case, then the Eternal editions might not be on shelves for that much longer, so you should probably consider getting them just to be on the safe side if you really want them. But that said, what do you folks think? Do you have the Eternal edition? Do you have this? Are you going to be buying this new Naoko Takeuchi edition? Do you have those old mix signs? Which edition of Sailor Moon are you reading? And really, there's no wrong way to read this series, except for the mix sign editions. They're all pretty well made books. The Eternal Edition and the Naoko Takeuchi Collection have a better translation than the original releases, but those are out of print now, so and you go to the store and you buy one of these, it doesn't matter, you're going to get the same story. Which one do you have? Which one do you plan to get? Were you someone who balked at the price of the Eternal Editions? I'd love to know. Comment below, like, favorite, share, subscribe, and as always, flame responsibly or I'll punish you. That's a quote from the show YouTube. Don't demonetize me for that.